because Serie B is it's a wild league and a lot of things go on. So
it's a wild league. Well said. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of. We're gonna laugh a lot about our predictions.
Guaranteed to be wrong. Let's just
absolutely 100%.
Cittadella are the only team in Veneto for this season because Vicenza failed to get promoted. Venezia went up to Serie A.
I would be happy with Carrarese and Reggiana being last and second to last. We are going to be touching upon each and every one of the teams on the league, so stay with us, interact with us, and together we're going to be speaking Serie B. Roma! Welcome to another episode of Speaking Serie B. I know that Jake likes our bell, so likes our bell, so let's ring it. Welcome to another episode. We are upon round 32 of Serie B League just ended. We are looking forward to the 33rd round, and only 5 games are left on this Serie B season, but everything is yet to be decided. So, as you well know, this program is co-hosted by Jake Iovine of Città Calcio USA, but he's currently busy recording one of his episodes for his podcast. So, while we are waiting around, we're not waiting, we're doing our best in his absence for him to join us. Let's review the current standing of the Serie B League, which I'm going to be sharing here on screen for those of you who are watching us. And I grab the opportunity to say hello to Wojciech Zurowski. I think I pronounced better the last name than the first name, who was protagonist of our previous episode as well, interacting with us through the chat, who writes, checking in, and I'll watch you guys later because I am driving. That's very safe since you're driving for a living. So thank you very much for checking in with us. And I'm sorry we're going to be missing out on your interactions with our upcoming predictions, but I'm sure we'll be hearing from you in the comments afterward when you're going to be able to dedicate your time to the live one that has ended. So moving on, this is the current standing of the Serie B League after the 32 round. Both teams on top of the table lost their most recent games. Talking about Sassuolo and Pisa. Sassuolo still comfortably leading the table with 72 points, followed by Pisa with 63 points in second position, and Spezia, my team, the team from my hometown, of course, as you might very well know, is now sitting in third place with 58 points, only 5 points away from the second place, which would be automatic promotion for the Eagles. But we know that, 5 points, although they might not be much, they are quite a lot when there are only 5 games left to play. But 5 games is 15 points. So anything is still possible, even in this end of the Serie B League. In fourth place is Cremonese with 52 points, 6 points behind Spezia. In fifth place, Juve Stabia with 49 points. Catanzaro then in sixth place with 46 points. And with 45 points in seventh place sits Palermo. And occupying the last spot of the playoffs positions is Cesena in 8th place with 43 points. So there is always a gap. Like there are no teams in the playoff spots that have the same amount of points. But, it's going to be interesting to see which teams are going to be falling out of the playoff spots, which other teams potentially might join the first 8th position. And then it's also very important who is going to end up where, because based on the position you are going to end up the championship, you're going to have more or less advantages in the playoffs lottery, because that's what it is. It doesn't matter what kind of championship you've done, the playoffs are going to reset it all, and it's really going to be a lottery game. So this ends the first 8th position. The first team currently out of the playoffs position at the same, an equal amount of points are Bari and Modena, sitting respectively in 9th and 10th place. Following down is in 11th place Carrarese with 37 points, the same amount of points collected in 32 games by Frosinone, currently sitting in 12th position. And then in 13th place is Mantova with 36 points. Mantova will be the next opponent for Spezia that is going to be playing in Mantova, so it's going to be a very interesting away game for the Eagles. And then we find Südtirol and Cittadella with 35 points, respectively. Südtirol in 14th place and Cittadella in 15th place. And then following Cittadella is Brescia, only 1 point behind with 34 points. And here the bagarre to avoid the relegation starts with Reggiana in 17th place with 32 points, together with Sampdoria. Sampdoria recently lost at the Alberto Pico, a game that wasn't very interesting in the first half, wasn't very exciting in the first half. But then a lot of things changed in the second half. Spezia was able to win 2-0 after also having the possibility to score the third goal, which we actually scored with Francesco P. Esposito, but the goal was removed, disallowed for a hand, for the touch of Francesco P. Esposito with his hand. We saw the replay. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it didn't matter for the win of the Spezia guys, which we're going to be talking about a bit more in depth in a little bit. In 19th place is Salernitana with only 30 points. Let's remember that Salernitana is newly the opposite of promoted. Basically, it recently came down. This is the first year that they do after the season in Serie A. So unfortunately, because Spezia supporters, myself included, sympathize for Salernitana. There is a good friendship between the two fan bases, but they're actually facing potential relegation. And it would be a shame. Even for Sampdoria, there isn't much sympathy anymore, although there was between the Spezia fans and Sampdoria fans. But such a historic team of our peninsula finding themselves at the verge of a potential relegation, a potential retrocessione, it's a shame. Also because it's not to be forgotten the fact that the financial backing that Sampdoria has is also subject to results on the pitch. They found funds to sustain the club, also not exclusively, but also in light of the fact that the Sampdoria team would have come back in the Major League within a certain specific, which I ignore what the specific is, amount of time. So should Sampdoria be relegated to Lega Pro, which what used to be Serie C, the club would be in serious trouble. In 20th place, concluding this recap of the current standing with 26 points, is Cosenza, the Wolves, who were able to draw most recently with Frosinone. So, as I said, everything is really unpredictable, because who would have thought that Cosenza would have drawn with the launched Frosinone that only a few rounds ago was there in the red zone, and now is one step away, basically, or maybe 1.5, 2 steps away from actual playoffs position. So, guys, as we said in our intro, is a very interesting. It is a very interesting championship. Serie B is very, very unpredictable, and we're here to share our thoughts with you guys. So let's say hello to Nicolas Straziotta. Nicolas, welcome to our live again. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here, Nicolas, and supporting our content with your interactions. So carrying on, let's go to see the result. Actually, let's start by reading what were the predictions Jake and I made on the previous episode of Speaking Serie B, and let's see how we did. We did better than last week, where we only scored 1 point each, if I remember well. But this week we did better. We did better, although we didn't improve our average. Let's see how we've done. Let me share the screen, and here we are. Let me verify that you can actually see it. You can. So these are the results of the 32nd round of Serie B. We started on Friday, April 4th, with Reggiana Cremonese, which ended 1-2. The scorer were At the 28th minutes, Manuel De Luca for Cremonese, then an own goal by Valentin Antov, and then Bianchetti at the 55th minute. And then Piquel at the 95th minute got a red card. Looking at the stats here, it appears that Cremonese, although it was an away game for them, literally dominated the game. Like 16 shots, 7 on target, 64% ball possession, 541 passes to only 308 for Reggiana, and pass accuracy 89%. So they 7 corners, they dominated in all fronts. So I'm not surprised that Cremonese took away this game. Also considering that the goal that Reggiana scored was an own game by Cremonese, if I understand that correctly. So Reggiana is not in the best shape, as we recently saw, sitting in 17th place with only 32 points, and Cremonese is launched to trail, to follow, Spezia position, fighting to gain a better position for them in light of the upcoming playoffs, because there will be playoffs. It's only a matter of who is going to play them. And as far as our prediction goes, Reggiana Cremonese ended 1-2. It was a 2, and both Jake and I predicted an X. So we get 0 point for this. Moving on to the next game, Brescia-Mantova. Brescia-Mantova was the play on Saturday, April 5th, and it ended 1-2. Of course, Brescia, after winning in the Alberto Pico, cannot replicate themselves. And although they find the first goal in after only 7 minutes with Gennaro Borrelli, in the second half, Mantova was able to draw and then get a win at the 95th minutes. I'm sure bookkeepers, the bookmakers, not the bookkeepers, the bookmakers would love that, would have loved, they did love these kind of results. Fabrizio Brignani at the 50th minute, and then Nicolò Radaelli at the 95th minute gives the win to Mantova. Even in this case, looking at the stats, Mantova was the leading team in between the two, although it was a closer game. Only 4 shots apart between Brescia and Mantova, looking at the occasions that each team have had: 14 for Brescia, 18 for Mantova. Shots on target, 6 for Brescia, 8 for Mantova. And as far as ball possession, it's very strange when Mantova does less than 65%, and they concluded the game with 66%. So right on schedule, right on average for this dominating team. At least they try to play the ball most of the time, although that dominance on the pitch does not always convert in result in wins. 584 passes for Mantova, 88% accuracy, 10 faults, and 3 yellow cards for Brescia, 2 for Mantova. This is the recap, basically the verbal recap of Brescia-Mantova 1-2. Back to our predictions. We predicted, myself, an X, and Jake predicted a victory of the home team, which would have been Brescia, and we've got 0 points even in this case, because it was Mantova to come back home with 3 points from Brescia. So Mantova is proceeding towards a smooth conclusion to their championship season. Originally, they seemed newly promoted team. They seemed lunch almost in the playoff spots. They've been sitting up there for the first half of the championship, if I'm not mistaken. Then they dropped like a rock, and they seemed really a step away from the really uncomfortable area of the direct relegation. And now they are, sitting in a much more comfortable situation, which leads us to our next prediction about Cittadella Carrarese. I'm sure once that Jake will be joining us today on the live, will tell us more about this game. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to take a look at the stats. The result was 0-0, so an X. I predicted a win. I was supporting Cittadella's team, and this was a good call for Jake, who predicted an X and got that one right. So congratulations for Jake, scoring the first point of our week. And as far as the stats go, this was a very close game. Look, 8 shots total per part, only 1 shot on target, so not much excitement, I might say, in the Cittadella Carrarese game, 1 each. And as far as ball possession, very close. 41% for Cittadella, 59% for Carrarese. As far as passes, only 294, sorry about that, for Cittadella, and 431 for Carrarese. So they try to play the ball more, I guess. They also had more pass accuracy, and it was a very physical typical Italian soccer, Serie B soccer, with 15 fouls for Cittadella and 10 fouls by Carrarese. Only one yellow card per part, and 3 offsides, 5 corners for Carrarese, 3 corners for Cittadella. And despite all these opportunities, not that many, 8 each, it ended on a white 0-0. I don't know why I said white, but not very exciting. 0-0. Moving on, another draw was by Südtirol and Cesena. Here are our predictions. Jay got this one right again. I thought that Cesena would have been able to win in Bolzano, but Südtirol proved itself to be a very difficult team to play, especially in their home field. And they were able not to be defeated by Cesena, which is in pretty good shape. Anyhow, this was 1-1 at X. I predicted a 2. Jay predicted an X. So another point for our Jake of Città Calcio USA. And as far as the game developed, it was Südtirol finding the first goal here with Niklas Pihitia. Absolutely, that is not the way to pronounce the name, but that's the best that I got for you guys, so bear with me. And then Cesena drew at the 59th minute with Elias Tavzan. Elias is almost similar to Elias. I don't know how to pronounce this name either. So 1-1. Südtirol scored at the 27th minute, and Cesena scored at the 59th minute. Even this one was a close game. Of course, it was a draw, so it must have been a close game. 7 shots for Cesena, 6 for Südtirol. Only 1 on target out of these 6 for Südtirol, and 2 on target for Cesena. Ball possession was 76% by Cesena, so Südtirol just wait behind and try to play alla viva il parroco. That's how we say it in Italian, like when the priest is teaching you just to, the priest used to be the coach of the youngsters playing by the church. We had a pitch by the church, and everybody in each town in Italy, they always learn to play soccer at the church, basically, by the church. And the typical technical tactic that they use is just to kick the ball from behind as far as possible to have the striker score. So looking at the stats, that's, I think, how Südtirol played this game, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say. But ball possession was 76% for Cesena, and passes 614 for Cesena, only 200 for Südtirol. They barely saw the ball. Pass accuracy 89%, and to confirm that there were a lot of long launches, so very low accuracy for Südtirol, only 60%. As far as faults, 15 by Südtirol, only 10 by Cesena, and it ended with 3 yellow cards for Cesena and 2 yellow cards for Südtirol. And as far as corners, 5 for Cesena, 2 for Südtirol. Our prediction was the one that I said earlier. Jay got this one right, and yet again, I made a mistake. So moving on to Frosinone Cosenza, 2-2. So this was probably one of those surprising results, at least it was for me. I actually predicted Cosenza to be able to win with Frosinone. I didn't see Frosinone continuing with the streak of wins, but probably I gave Cosenza too much credit. Alvini was back on the bench, and they were actually leading, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a look at the stats so that I can tell you more about the game. And at the end, Frosinone was able to come back from behind and avoid the loss in their own stadium in this home game. And as far as our prediction goes, Jake got this one right again, predicting an X when I, in fact, predicted the Wolves win. And this is how the game unfolded. After 24 minutes, Cosenza scores the first goal of the game with Gabriele Artistico. Then at the 30th minute, Frosinone draws with Ebrima Darbo. I think that's how you call him. And then Andrea Rizzo Pinna at the 44th minute finds the second goal for Cosenza that ends the first half of the game, leading 1-2 in Frosinone. Then, just at the end of the game, after that Cosenza lost Christos Kourfalidis at the 79th minute, Emanuele Pecorino at the 90th minute +7 was able to score the goal that actually brought the result to the final 2-2. And even in this case, the bookmakers are happy about that. As far as we're here talking about predictions. Okay, we not mention the bookmakers and all those intrallazzi that go behind the scenes, although Jake doesn't like this kind of content. But anyhow, team stats. Frosinone, 20 shots. Cosenza, only 6. And on target, out of these 25 were on target for Frosinone. And out of these 6, 3 were on target for Cosenza. So much better percentage of accuracy on shots on target, although they more than doubled Frosinone the occasions that they had compared to Cosenza. So I think at the end, Frosinone is the one that's missing out points on this one. But I'm really sorry for Cosenza struggles this season. Possession, 63% for Frosinone, 486 passes for Frosinone, only 305 for Cosenza. Look at this, pass accuracy, 91% for Frosinone. Like, they barely lost ball possession. When they had it, they just get to the other hand, and they were able to be very precise. And also Cosenza did pretty well with 80% accuracy. As far as faults, only 5 by Frosinone, 14, much more physical team. Cosenza, also because probably lower in quality as far as skills by the players. 4 yellow cards for Frosinone, 3 yellow cards for Cosenza, and as far as corners, 6 for Frosinone and none for Cosenza, which brought the end result to be a draw. This is kind of surprising in light of the stats that Frosinone wasn't able to win this one, but so is life. This is football, guys. Getting on to the next prediction we made on the previous episode of Speaking Serie B. The next game was Pisa-Modena. The result was unpredictable by both of us. Win by Modena, 1-2 in the Arena Garibaldi, when both Jake and I predicted a strong 1, seeing Pisa winning against the Canarians, I guess. You know, the Yellowbirds in Italian are Canarini, so Canarians. Modena starts scoring at the 27th minutes with Simone Santoro, and then at the 50th minutes, only 5 minutes after the beginning of the second half, with Ettore Liozzi. And then only at the 77th minute, Stefano Moreo accorcia le distanze, shortened the distances, so they had about 15 to 20 minutes to actually draw this game, but it didn't happen. So Pisa loses in the Arena Garibaldi, although looking at the stats, they clearly dominated the game. 15 shots, only 5 on target for Pisa, 9 shots for Modena. Actually, I didn't watch the game, but I heard friends of mine talking about it, and they say that Pisa at the very least deserved the draw. They really played much better football, and they dominated the game, as the stats confirm. So as far as Modena, 9 shots, only 4 on target. And as far as possession, 62% for Pisa, 38% for Modena. Passes, 518 for Pisa, 341 for Modena. And accuracy on the passes, 79% for Pisa, 69 for Modena. Faults, 14 faults by Pisa, 7 by Modena. Yellow cards, a bunch, 3 for Pisa, 2 for Modena. And corners, 4 for Pisa and 1 for Modena. But nevertheless, Pisa was not able neither to draw this game and nevertheless, winning. So this ended in a surprising result, Pisa losing at home. But here is Jay coming to rescue, helping me out. Welcome back.
Yeah. I like coming to rescue. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I like that, coming to rescue. Yes, apologies everyone for the slight delay, but I was recording actually a fantastic episode with Carlo Cecchino from Il Corriere del Veneto, who was actually a guest on Spazio al Prossimo. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. But it was it was a wonderful podcast. So yeah, that's stay tuned for that. And yeah,
where can we find it, Jake?
Oh yes, Cheetah Culture USA on all podcast platforms, all streaming platforms. So be on the lookout for that. And coming up, this massive game on against Sampdoria on Saturday. Man, it's like we're at a stage of the season where it's like, man, like I can't wait for the next game. Like I know it's like very anxious, but like I just in the past, it's like it doesn't seem like if you're in December or January, it's like it seems like you're in the middle of the season where it's like I don't know if it really matters, but now like every minute, every point really counts in going into this
Indeed.
Samp game where it's, man, like I can't wait for it. It's going to be really, really cool to see.
Indeed. So let's take it back 1 second, continuing on for where I left. I was just recapping Pisa Modena, and we were already going through the predictions we made on the previous episode. But normally, this is something you do. There are a few games that are left and a few predictions to go through. So please go ahead, starting from Juve Stabia Salernitana, and then I want to hear about what happened in the game with Cittadella.
Oh
Correct.
yeah, and even for the Pisa game, yeah, it's I'm sure going into that game for Spezia on Sunday against Sampdoria, you guys had that opportunity to close the gap, which you did end up doing. But yeah, Pisa, this was a man. Modena is just such a difficult team to predict because they beat Pisa twice. This was the second time that they beat them this season, yet they've lost at Sampdoria. They've lost in Salerno against Salernitana. They're just very unpredictable. I think they're going to finish mid-table. I don't see them making the playoffs, but I definitely do not see them getting relegated. So this is just a very difficult team. But for Pisa, you know, they got to be careful because it's only 5 points. And if we were, this is where the 2 points counts for the Tavellino result, because if not, they would be 3 points behind, and Pisa would have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So you know, it really counts on both ends of the table. But anyway, yeah, moving on to the derby, Juve Stabia against Salernitana. We both get 0 points for this, for predicting a Juve Stabia win. It was a very comfortable win, I'd say, especially in the first half. Juve Stabia were all over Salernitana. Salernitana kind of coming alive towards late, but it wasn't enough. And Roberto Breda is sacked for Salernitana. It is now Pasquale Marino, I believe. He's the former Bari coach. So yeah, Salernitana changing coaches, Sampdoria changing coaches. This is just one last effort from all the teams.
And only 5 games left to play, so there isn't much.
It's really a desperate attempt
really...
just to save this season, and then, you know, in the summer they could kind of regroup and reset everything. But one thing I kind of want to say is on this match week, I see Frosinone drawing against Cosenza. Oh, poor Cosenza! They were so close to a really victory that would really give them life in this, because they got a huge game this upcoming scontro diretto against Brescia at home. And as we know, Brescia just lost against Mantova. So this is poor Cosenza. They lost in the 97th minute against Frosinone. There was some controversy with the red card and stuff, but Alvini felt bad for him, and feel bad for Antonio Palopoli, who are Cosenza friends.
At least they didn't lose. It was a very difficult game abroad, and there are still hopes for playouts.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Just after that, if they had won, they would have been on 28 points. Now, really only one result behind the playout. But now, after that, just mentality-wise, it's I don't know, because they still got to play Spezia, they still got to play Bari and Cesena. So I don't know. It might be the end of the road for the Lupi. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. But moving along, I actually got a point for that game, but I did not. You actually got a point for predicting Palermo Sassuolo. This was a goal fest, 5-3 game at the Renzo Barbera. I did not see this. I mean, I thought it was going to be high scoring, but I did not see a 5-3 victory for that. But you get a point for predicting. That was a big win for Palermo, as well as you get a point for predicting Catanzaro Bari. This was a back and forth game. Bari taking the lead, then Catanzaro coming back, and then Bari scoring late to rescue a draw. It's once again another draw for Bari, but I don't know if they'll be happy with that, because they currently are outside the playoff spots as we speak, and Catanzaro continuing to draw. Spezia Sampdoria, this was the final game. I will say there was only one word to describe this, is Lapagol. Lapadula finally getting off the mark and scoring. This was actually, I was thinking this was probably your your way of returning the favor for Cittadella, because a few weeks ago Cittadella defeated Pisa in Pisa for Spezia, and now Spezia defeating Sampdoria for Cittadella going into that game this weekend. So thank you, but once again I get 0 points, and Ilya, you do get a point for this.
So we did better than last week because we only scored 1 point, while this week we scored 3 points each. So
And
these leads,
standings
these
don't
wins are,
change.
yeah, no changes. I am 6 points behind, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make this a little bit smaller so that everybody can see. I'm still 6 points behind, and we did decrease our average by scoring less than 4 points. So our numbers slightly dropped, but it is what it is. We'll do better next time. So let's move on to today's prediction of the games of round 33. I didn't talk much about Spezia Sampdoria. As Jake said, the most important thing for us is that La Padula finally was able to score, and that we found the comeback basically of Salvatore Esposito. It was, the game started to change in the second half. The first half was very boring, typical Serie B game. We didn't see much from both teams, either of the two teams. But what Salvatore Esposito did once there was on the pitch is just sped up the way Spezia was playing. There was more accuracy, better quality in the passes. And I often hear people say after the game, he changed the game. He didn't change the game. Spezia always plays the same way. A lot of intensity. We get down and we put crosses in the crosses, the high passes basically in the middle. And that's what we've been doing. Just probably we did it faster with more accuracy, and that what changed. And we found La Padula, so that's great. But to arrive at the playoffs facing teams like Catanzaro, Cremonese, Palermo, we need to come up with some new ideas, I guess, because it's getting old, and a lot of teams are learning and protecting themselves from the way Spezia is playing. So we're getting a bit predictable. Go ahead.
And see what happens when you start Tagori in net as the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
What a surprise, they win.
Yeah, even about that, Sampdoria probably didn't even kick once. It would be interesting to see the stats of the game. I'm pulling those out now. So 10 shots, 3 on target, but I don't remember which occasions they were. For sure, Gori is a very good goalkeeper. He gives me much more security to have him as a goalkeeper. He's a better keeper. Cicizzola allows the team to play differently. So there are occasions that wouldn't present themselves when Cicizzola is on the pitch, and the same is true on the opposite. So they're just two very different players, and I'm happy whoever is playing. I'm happy. It is true that with Brescia, Cicizzola has been guilty of a huge mistake that allowed Brescia to score, but we did not lose the game because of Cicizzola. Because if the team does not score in the remaining 90 minutes, it's the whole squad's fault. Moving on with the predictions. Round 33, opening game will be Bari-Palermo. Do you want to start, Jake?
Sure, yeah. And, before I also start, I forgot to kind of touch upon the Cittadella game. Well,
yes, sorry.
Really quickly. It was a 0-0 draw. Not a great game to watch, but I think I said this in the podcast just with Carlo, that this was a game where everyone expected how this was going to be a game. It was going to be a tight game. Really, both teams were going to be kind of afraid to lose, and they would rather not lose and take a point than rather try to go for the win and leave spaces in behind for attack. So there wasn't many chances. I think Caradesi may have had the better opportunities. They had a nice spell after halftime where they came close on some occasions. And Cittadella actually hit the post in the second half, which was their best opportunity. But it wasn't a great game to watch, if I'm being honest. But we kind of expected, and you have to think that it's going to be like this for the next 6 games for Cittadella. It's going to be a lot of tightly contested games, a lot of nervous play, and really it's going to take maybe one moment, the episodio, as they say,
Mhm.
in Italian for it to decide the game. So that's kind of all I have to say really quickly about this game. Just
Awesome.
that
Yeah, I
it
was just busy myself on the stats that I saw, and I thought that the draw or the 0-0 was a legit game, considering that they each team had the same amount of opportunities, and they were very close on everything else as well. If it weren't for the amount of passes. Go
but
ahead. Sorry.
yeah, but as we're gonna talk about in a little bit once we get there, the game against Sampdoria I think is gonna be much different, and I'll explain to you the reasons why when we get there.
All right. So back to our predictions. Starting round 33 will be Bari Palermo. You're up.
All right, yeah. Bari Palermo. This is a playoff game. I know Bari aren't technically safe yet, but let's be honest. I think they are. I think they're too good. They're like Modena. They're too good to not make it. But they got to start winning games if they want to make the playoffs. And they're playing against a Palermo team, uh, much better Palermo team as of late. They've won. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've won 4 games of their last 6. Really should have won another one against Cremonese where they lost the 2-goal lead, but they're coming off a big win against Palermo. They're scoring a lot of goals. Poyan Paulo is worth every penny, it seems like, when they bought him in January from Venezia. So I think they're starting to look good now. They're playing a Bari side, which they love to draw. It would be their 18th draw if they do another one. I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be an X for this. So I expect, maybe a 2-2 game. So, or a 1-1, an X.
I agree with you. I am predicting an X as well, in light of the fact that Bari draws a lot and that Palermo wants to win, but Bari is playing at home, so I don't see Bari losing on their own, in their own stadium. And both of them are going to try to win, but they're not going to be willing to hurt too much. But it's going to be one of those games where the one that loses has too much to lose as far as projection to the playoffs, and they'll keep themselves alive. So I don't know. I haven't seen playing either of these two teams. Palermo is in an increasing,
Yes.
great shape. Better and better shape. But
yeah,
they also
absolutely.
lost three games ago. They lost one and they drew the previous one. So 3 wins for Palermo in the most recent 5. So I see an X. We'll see. Next game to predict is Salernitana Südtirol. Südtirol, that does not lose at home, will be facing Salernitana in Salerno, and Salernitana is in huge trouble, guys.
Big trouble.
Yeah. I remember talking with Marco, who is a Salernitana fan that I had the pleasure to meet in person after connecting through the content that we create last year in 2024 when I was in Salernitana for the Coppa Italia game of between Salernitana and Spezia. And he said, this season we'll be only able to think about avoiding relegation. And I was, not laughing in between my teeth, but I didn't see that happening from a newly relegated team. I figured that they might have struggled, but not this much. Like 30 points, 19th place, with 3 losses in the 5 most recent games. I really wish them well. I don't know what to predict on this one. Also because Südtirol has been drawing 3 games out of the 5, won 1 and lost the one previous to the most recent one. So I'm going to say another X just because I hope and I don't see Salernitana losing at home. But Serie B is unpredictable. And now more than ever, in light of what you said in your opening lines, that every single minute of each game count, every team is playing for something. And we saw even this past week that we only got 3 and the previous only 1. So it's really difficult. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah. Well, just as to notice, you put a 1 there instead of an X.
Yes, sorry, I'm
said,
changing it now. Thank you.
Salernitana are in deep trouble. They sacked another coach. Roberto Breda is out, and now incoming Pasquale Marino, who is trying to save Salernitana. It's interesting because since the start of the new year, only 2 teams have defeated Salernitana at the Stadio Orecchi. That was Sassuolo and Palermo. So they are better at home. 6 wins from 16 games, 4 draws, 22 points from their 30 are at the Orecchi. So it's definitely something to consider. Südtirol, they lost against Mantova. They drew against Cesena at home, which was a important draw. But I think as much as how good they've been playing since they got Castori at the wheel, I think they still got to be careful because they aren't out of the woods just yet. Just given how desperate the situation is for Salernitana, I have no idea how they're going to look under a new coach at this stage of the season.
Right.
It's just like it's basically a coin flip at this moment. However, I think the Orecchi will help them in this moment, and I think Südtirol has to be careful for this reason. Given the situation that they're in, they're losing coming off Derby. I think they need a response, and I think they'll get it. I'm going to say a 1 for this.
All right. This brings us to the next prediction for the game between Cosenza and Brescia. The Wolves are facing the Lioness.
Yeah, this is I don't know. It's hard to say like the last chance for Cosenza because it really isn't until they're like mathematically relegated. It really isn't the last chance, but it's certainly to feel like it because they were so close to that result against Frosinone. They played pretty well, but got the red card, conceded very, very late, and they have Spezia, Salernitana, Bari, Südtirol, Cesena next. So if they want any chance to survive or even make the playoffs, they need to start. They need to win, and they have to win this game. For Brescia, they lost that game against Mantova. There was also some controversy with VAR because they disallowed a goal that didn't seem offside, and then Mantova scoring very, very late in that. Brescia taking away that Spezia win 2 weeks ago. They have not been great.
Unbelievable.
Currently in 16th place. They are really starting to feel it right now. Man, it's hard to. I'm going to say an X because I think you're going to see a lot of this where it's like both. I think Cosenza definitely needs to play for the win more, but a lot of these teams are now going to be happy with not losing. It's really going to decide down to 1 or 2 moments. So I'm going to say an X.
As I often say, I do agree with your thought process. And about what happened in La Spezia, it wasn't Brescia that won the game, it was Spezia that lost the game. Because beside defending to the point that we weren't able to score, also because we made a lot of mistakes, Brescia was only able to score because of that huge mistake by the goalkeeper that I talked about even earlier. So if there is a team that Cosenza can win against, can defeat now, it can only be Brescia. Also in light of the other teams that are going to be facing in the future, if they're not winning this game at home at the Stadio Marulla, they're not going to be able to be mentally in shape to face, and they're going to think that they're already relegated. Probably some players already think that they are. This might not be mathematically the last game for them, but if they don't win, if they don't score point mentally, I think they're gonna give up. Also because in light of the experience that Spezia has had with Alvini, he's not a coach like Luca D'Angelo proved himself to be, that mentally charges the people, charges the teams, the players, and is able to snap them out of the situation they mentally put themselves in. So they need a win. An X might be more realistic, but I really do hope that the Wolves can make it, and they only need a win. So I'm going to predict that playing at home with the support of the fans, they're going to be able to bring this one home. So it's a 1 for me on this one, which leads us to the next game, Carrarese-Catanzaro. Although Carrarese is now in a more comfortable position in the championship, I think there are no doubts about which one is the better team between the two. Catanzaro is superior. Also, although Carrarese does not play bad football, they are a good organized team. And on their advantage, on the home advantage, they don't only have the supporter on their side, although Catanzaro has supporters all over Italy, and they are one of the most, the fan bases in the Serie B league that has the highest participation in all the away games. So I think if the home field advantage is going to be playing a part, it's not going to be in the stands, but it's going to be on the fact that Carrarese pitch is one of the, together with the one from Castellammare di Stabia, is the only one that is fully synthetic. But Catanzaro is just a better team, and they are, although lately, what have they been doing? They draw and they lost the two most recent games, then they won. So they're not in the great shape that they were in previously. Sixth place, 47 points. I don't see them playing with Carrarese that only has one win in the last 5 games, 3 draws and 1 loss. So I'm going to predict my first 2 on this one, giving the victory to Catanzaro.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm currently we're at a stage of the season where it's like, from a Cittadella's point of view, it's like you have to start to look at other teams and kind of root for other teams. So in this case, I think if you're a Cittadella fan right now, you're also a Catanzaro fan, and this could kind of maybe influence my predictions, and maybe trying to reverse jinx the for like if I say Carrarese is going to win, maybe they'll lose. But no, Catanzaro, they're currently 6th place. They're kind of to maybe stumble a little bit since that Spezia game where they won with Pitarello scoring. They've only won 1, and that was against the bottom side, Cosenza. And they've lost their last 2 away trips, both at Cremonese and against Modena. And I think they're actually going to lose again. I think playing Carrarese is just a very difficult team to play at Carrara. Just
Pisa
for
lost
whatever
in
reason.
Carrara, if I'm not mistaken, right?
What was that?
Pisa lost in Carrara, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that was against 10 men. But, at the same time, they have beaten Palermo at home. They've beaten Cittadella. They have beaten, let's see, Cesena. They've won against Salernitana and Bari. So this is definitely 8 wins at home from their 16 games. They've gone 28 points from their 27 games at home. So I think it's going to be a tight game, but I think Carrarese might win 1-0. So I'm going to predict a 1 for this and another loss for Catanzaro for this game.
All right. Next one is Reggiana Pisa. And it's probably one of the most interesting and difficult one, because Reggiana is really at the bottom of the table, and Pisa
I'm up, I believe,
is coming from a loss. So go ahead.
Yeah, yes, I'm up.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Reggiana is another team kind of fighting for their lives right now. They're gonna just throw anything. No wins in their last 9 games. They've lost 2 straight games, both at the Mappe Stadium, one against Sassuolo and one against Cremonese. They're not in great shape. They are playing a Pisa team who are now, I don't know. I think they're starting to feel the pressure because they saw Spezia finally took advantage of their slip up. They're finally getting the full 3 points from Pisa's loss against Modena. Pisa have only won twice in their last 5 games, which is, I don't know, maybe since that Cittadella game, they've won 3 games against Juve Stabia, Mantova, and Cosenza. So I think Inzaghi said it after one of the games, or before one of the games, that they haven't achieved anything yet, and they've got to be really careful that they don't, because this could be I think at the Mappe Stadium, this is definitely a banana peel. They could definitely slip and fall on their face in this game, especially when you're playing these teams in the relegation zone. I think they might be harder to play against than you're playing against a playoff team, because they are going to go 1000% at you in these games. So I think for this reason, it's going to be a difficult game for Pisa, and this is definitely one to watch. They could definitely slip up. So for that, I'm going to predict an X for this.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I have my mind clear. I also predict an X. For some reasons, I don't see Pisa coming away from the Stadio Tricolore with 3 points. Also because, as I said, Reggiana really needs to score points. Pisa is coming from a loss, unexpected loss at home with Modena. And Inzaghi's teams are notorious to lose their momentum towards the
Hmm.
end of the season,
Yes.
being for whatever reason. So physical, mental, as you said, they might start feeling some pressure, and then it's just something. An X potentially with Spezia winning is the dream of all the sponsors, to keep people watching till the end. So I
Yeah.
think this is an ideal situation for everybody. It's going
And
to be an X.
I will say, I think for Pisa, this is definitely a must not lose game, because if they lose, then they're really looking at something like, oh my god, like this could actually fall apart. If they get a draw, you could say, you know, depending on how it goes, maybe it's a point to take. However, I will say, if we're looking ahead, they do have to play Cremonese next game
Hmm.
on Paschetta. So that could be a huge game. And Spezia
Indeed.
do play at home against Cosenza. So
Right.
it could really change in a blink of an eye. So they've got to be really careful. This is a really big game. Cannot underestimate the importance of this game. And I will say, that's kind of a thing about Inzaghi's team is towards the end, you could see, I don't know if this season's different because they are still in second place, but I remember with Regina, they were just on this losing streak. They could not win a game in the Girone di Ritorno, and they fell. Really, they needed a last minute goal to even make the playoffs. They were in second place, and then they made the playoffs. And when he was with Benevento, they were in Serie A. They were comfortably mid-table, midway through the season, and then they ended up getting relegated. So we'll see. And also, I guess you could say the same thing for D'Angelo, because he was with this in this position for Pisa. They still made playoffs, but they started to stumble a little bit as well. So it's a very interesting dynamic here that we have
Indeed.
between the two
Indeed.
teams. So we'll have to see what happens.
As usual, unpredictable. Next game to predict, which is what we're trying to do at least, is Sampdoria Cittadella. Sampdoria does not look good at all. I'm kind of laughing, but I am sorry, because they are one of the most historical team in Italy, for sure. At least Genoa is more historic than Samp as far as the teams in our region, but Sampdoria has won much more, also at the European level. And now to see such a historically big team at the verge of Lega Pro, with all the issues that they have in the background, is it's a shame. So I'm sorry. That being said, Cittadella is in much better shape on the pitch than Sampdoria. There will be the new coach on the bench, but I don't know how much. A lot of people were hoping that Simplici would have been sacked before the game with Spezia, in light of the fact that nobody in today's circumstances was predicting Sampdoria to win in La Spezia. So they said, at least writing off already the game with Spezia and La Spezia as a loss, the new coach will have 2 weeks to prepare for a much more approachable game, which is the one that they're going to be playing at home with Cittadella. But yet again, they waited, and probably they wait a bit too long, because, as we said, only 5 games are left to play, and now Sampdoria is facing Cittadella. Cittadella that's coming from 2 draws previously, from 2 losses and 1 win. But you'll tell us much more about it and how you feel about it. Actually, you already predicted that there is something important to say. I don't see Sampdoria winning. I don't see. They might not lose, but I don't see Sampdoria winning, because they didn't show anything in the Alberto Pico. So the best that I can give them credit for, it's an X, because they're playing at home. You're up, Jake.
Oh boy, yeah. I've been thinking about this game for all week, and no, we're at the stage of the season, like I said, where just every game, every week is just gonna slowly tick by and slowly go by. And we were just talking on the podcast that I just had, where this is I I have no idea what Sampdoria is going to bring in this game, because they have a new manager. Mancini was there. He's not going to be the head coach or anything, but he's going to be present there just to kind of supervise and to kind of you know look over. And their new coach, Ivani, who is a former Sampdoria player. Mancini, obviously, former I keep saying Spezia, but former Sampdoria person. So this is the club where they're really getting desperate, and they're just kind of doing anything they can to kind of survive in this game. So, you know, Sampdoria should not be in this position because if you look at their squad, if you look at their spending, they should be nowhere near Lega Pro. But
Right.
yeah, here we are. They're just 2 wins in 22 Serie B games. It's just simply not good enough. 2 losses on the bounce to Frosinone and Spezia without scoring a single goal. However, you got to be wary because they're playing with a new manager. You you, they could be playing like they were in 1991 when they won the Scudetto, or they could be playing like they did in La Spezia. It's simply too unpredictable to predict what Sampdoria are going to be like.
I think
However,
we have to take into account also the mindset that players might and must be in, regardless of who's on the bench. Also, in light of how much time they have to prepare for these games.
I will say that definitely Sampdoria has way more pressure in this game, and really for the end of the season than Cittadella, just given the historic nature of the club, just how much they've invested in this team. For them to go to Serie C, it would be a disaster, more than a disaster,
Right.
a catastrophe for that matter. And so you saw what they were doing after the game against Frosinone, where they came over to the Curva, they were insulting them. So Cittadella is entering a very nervous stadium, and there's going to be a lot of excitement given the new coach. Then maybe there's some new belief, but at the same time, it's a very anxious stadium. And I'm telling you, if Cittadella gets that first goal, I think that it's going to be very difficult for
They're going to crumble.
Come back.
Yeah.
That's
exactly what happened in Spezia. There was no game until Spezia scored, and then the game ended. Like, even if they didn't disallow Francesco Pio Esposito goal, it would have ended probably a lot to nothing. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's I think definitely the first goal is going to be important in this, and whoever takes it, I think, is going to win. Spezia, I keep saying Spezia for whatever reason. Sampdoria have dropped 25 points from winning positions. That's the most out of any team in Serie B. So definitely got to keep an eye out for that. However, this is like I said in the podcast. I think I said it again. Sampdoria have way more to lose in this game, because if they lose a third straight game, if you look at their upcoming games, they have 2 away trips to the synthetic fields, to Castelmar di Sabbia and Carrarese. Then they have to play home against Cremonese, and then away against Catanzaro. Then they finish the season at Salernitana. So this is a massive, massive game. I think Cittadella would be far better off with the draw than Sampdoria, given that they're 3 points above them. I cannot predict this game. It's going to really come down to one moment. Who could be more clinical in one moment, whether that's Coda scoring, off a set piece or whatever, or Cittadella scoring on a counterattack. I have no idea. And I think a draw is reasonable in this, but, as they say, complimenti per la vittoria. So I'm going to say Sampdoria. I'm going to say a 1.
All right.
Complimenti.
Yeah. Also, Coda is not in the best shape of his life. But he looked a little bit round when he entered the pitch.
He always scores against Cittadella. He scored, I think, 9 goals. I think that's the most out of any team. So
wow.
He is the Green Reaper for Cittadella.
I see. All right. This leads us to our next prediction. Modena Sassuolo, you're up.
Yeah, Modena Sassuolo. Sassuolo, I think, they couldn't. If they had won in Palermo and Spezia had lost, they would have been promoted. But they're really, like we said, it's only a matter of when now. They're playing against Modena, regional rivalry, both in Reggio Emilia. So for this, I'm going to say a 2 here. I think Modena are safe. I don't know if they'll make a late playoff. I know they beat Pisa, but I think Sassuolo will officially confirm their promotion in this game.
How can I argue with that? Modena is just unpredictable, but Sassuolo is a better team, so Modena is not going to make the playoffs, as you said. I agree. They do have hopes, but there are better teams ahead of them that are just maybe making the gap. Now they're only 2 points away from the 8th place, so they might have something to say about it. And Scansuolo, as we call him, might
Scanswallow.
find. Yes, can swallow because they move aside when they can. They can collect his
Here we go
That's how
again.
they call it. That's how we call him in Italy. It is what it is. So anyhow, I am going to predict an X just to disagree with you, and because Sassuolo might be able to sell another game, so to keep the
Oh my
championship
goodness.
more
Here we go.
exciting. We'll
I
see.
think
No,
no,
I'm just
Elia, I think you're still angry about the mistake by Concili that condemned
the
Spezia
honest
to.
mistake by Consigli. Sure.
Oh yeah.
Cremonese Juve Stabia. Cremonese. This is going to be a very interesting game. Like while the Reggiana Pisa is probably a crucial game for both teams for very different reasons. Cremonese Juve Stabia is just a crucial point, a crucial game for the playoffs outcome. Because every position, every spot matters in the first 8 spots. They're gonna get privileges and bonuses based on how high they end up. And the two teams, Cremonese and Juve Stabia, are only 3 points apart. Cremonese 4th place with 52, Juve Stabia 5th with 49. Both teams are in great shape. 3 wins in the last 5 games for both teams, although Cremonese has 1 draw while Juve Stabia has 1 loss in these 5 games. So the home field advantage might have a play in these. In between the two, I think Cremonese has more talent powder. There's more power powder. How do you say it? So more skills for
Mhm.
the players. So I'm going to predict a 1. You're up.
Yeah, I mean, let's all give credit to Juve Stabia. I mean, they're on a 3-game winning streak, but 5th place with 49 points. Nobody expected them
Newly
to be in
promoted.
this.
You're right.
Newly promoted. What a job Pali Luca is doing in Castellammare di Stabia. I mean, it's I don't know if they're going to end up in Serie A. It's unlikely, just given the teams that are going to be promoted in the playoffs. But it's a very interesting story. So a lot of credit to Juve Stabia at this moment. However, given that they're playing in Cremona, I think Cremonese is just going to have a little too much, and Cremonese has been playing better as of late. They're starting to maybe find some form, and I think they'll win this one. So I think it's another 1 for me.
Yeah, Juve Stabia is just like Catanzaro of last season. The surprise, but with no surprise in light of how they play. They may be a surprise because they're coming from a lower category, but they are a legit good, solid team. Next game is Cesena Frosinone. You're up.
Okay, so I was looking into Frosinone, and yes, they are the most informed team in the league. They've gone 13 points of their last what's it 5 games. They're currently sitting in 12th, and really, I think they are in a good position right now. They're playing much better. They've got a new manager bounced in Paolo Bianco, but they've got to be careful. And I'll tell you why. It's because their next games, I have them all written down. They have probably the hardest run of games remaining for any teams. They've got to play at Cesena. Then they're playing at Sassuolo. They host Spezia. That's going to be a very early kickoff, by the way, here in the United States. I think it's like a 6:30 Eastern
Wow.
time. Yeah, a very early game. Then they at home against Cittadella. Wait. Oh no, sorry. Home against Spezia, then away against Pisa, home against Cittadella, and then away against Palermo. So the next 5 opponents are in the playoff spots, and 2 of them are Spezia and Pisa. Sorry,
Mhm.
that are currently fighting for the second place. So this is they've got to be careful, and I think if they're playing and they continue to follow the same way that they've been playing, I think that they'll be fine. But if they start to lose games, they're all of a sudden right back into this playoff or the relegation zones, and so they've got to be careful. I think they're definitely not out of the woods yet, and they by far have probably the most difficult run in out of any teams. And I don't know if that 2-2 draw against Cosenza, where they're playing against bottom of the table Cosenza at home, I don't know how much that's gonna play a factor towards the end of the season. Then they got away against Palermo on the final day, so it's going to be difficult. I think we got to watch out for Frosinone, and for this game against Cesena, I think Cesena have too much to play for. As of right now, they're currently sitting 8th, if I believe. Yes, 8th.
Yes.
They're on the verge of playoffs. I think they're going to get this win, so I'm going to say another one for me.
All right. No, it's an interesting breakdown you gave us. I didn't know, I wasn't thinking that far out with the very difficult games that Frosinone has. It is a newly, we are at the end of this season, so nothing is new anymore, but they were in the Major League last season. I didn't foresee them, or maybe yes, I did foresee some of the newly relegated teams to struggle this season. Just a few weeks ago, I would have told you there is no game. Frosinone, they are in trouble, but now they're so launched. It's really going to be an open game with Cesena, though, because Cesena is there at the verge. It's not comfortably in the playoffs. It is a newly promoted team. So it's fun. It's very interesting to see how a newly relegated team and a newly promoted team, Cesena has been much more persistent, comfortably always in the first half of the standing. Frosinone has an interesting path that leads them here, probably in a much more healthy, strong state of mind. But probably they cannot do more than just achieve a comfortable avoidance of the relegation in light of the future games that they will have to face. As far as Cesena Frosinone, I think I predicted Cesena to win the previous game, and then they only ended up drawing, if I'm not mistaken, but it doesn't matter. It's a tough one. I'm going to predict an X, because when in doubt, I always throw an X, but also because they are so close that anything can happen. So yeah, I'm just going to say an X and we'll see. And to disagree with you, because probably Cesena is a better team, but if we keep on making predictions that are, mirroring each other, then there is no fun in our game. The last one, I get to predict a Spezia game again first, although I also predicted first the Cittadella game this time. They should, better organize them. Anyhow, Mantova Spezia. Mantova, I think, is like Frosinone, meaning that although they are a newly promoted team, they don't have ambitions to achieve any playoff positions, and actually they are much more focused in avoiding relegations in light of their most recent performances. Although they did start the first half of the championship that they seem to be, they could have done something like Cesena is doing and Juve Stabia is doing, but then they dropped like a rock, and now they're regaining some momentum because they never stop playing football. And when you play and you play with merit, you deserve to win, although not always good performances converts into results on the pitch, unfortunately. That being said, it's going to be a very difficult game, but I think Mantova's goal is just to breeze to the end of the remaining championship, avoiding relegation. They'll be able to do that comfortably, so they don't have the current need to play their hearts out, having to win this game at all cost. They might not lose, so it might end up being an X, but I'm going to predict a 2 because I still believe that Spezia can play until the end game with Cremonese, hoping to catch up on Pisa. You're up.
Yeah, because so Mantova, going into the international break, they were in really poor form. Only 1 win since the start of the new year. But after that international break, 2 wins on the bounce against relegation rivals, against Südtirol and Brescia. Brescia coming from a goal down to beat them in a last-minute dramatic winner. This is an interesting game. I think definitely a difficult game. If you remember, it was a 1-1 draw in the reverse fixture. Mantova playing down a man for a majority of that game. Man, it's going to be interesting to see, because if Pisa slip up like we predicted, then that really leaves the door open for Spezia, and we'll have to see if they could take advantage of that. on paper, Spezia should win this. It's just they've been so unpredictable these last few weeks and so up and down. They've been drawing games which maybe they shouldn't have. They've been getting failing to take advantage of Pisa's result. I don't know. Maybe that Sampdoria game kind of flipped that, and they finally took advantage of the Pisa game. So, I mean, I hate to disagree with you, but I think I'm going to go for a very narrow Spezia win. So it's a 2 for me.
All right. So you hate to agree with me. You don't hate to disagree with me.
Yeah.
All right. So this ends the predictions on the upcoming round of the Serie B League on round 33. And to find out how we did, we do invite you to participate to our live next Wednesday, Wednesday the 16th, as usual, at 7 p.m. CET. But in the meantime, if you want to know more about our teams and about the content we create, we do invite you to subscribe to both of our channels and to follow us. As far as I'm concerned, Elia the Italian Guy and or Speziato on Instagram and TikTok. And Jake, where can we find your content?
Yes, Cheetah Calcio USA, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and cheetahcalciousa.com for news, information, articles, all that stuff about Città Della. Once again, cheetahcalciousa.com and Cheetah Calcio USA on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. So yeah, go give us a follow.
And all the links to our channels, our social media platforms are on the link. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Wednesday, and we will be speaking Serie B.